Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing fantastic. So, we're continuing our reading of the Federalist Papers. I really enjoy these kinds of texts because of the classic English, the wisdom that the founding fathers of America lay down. And it is hilarious how you'll learn about fake stuff about gender theory in school, but they won't teach you actual writings of the founding fathers or things of a higher caliber, which just shows the dumbing down of the education system in America. So by going through this classic, you get to see a different side of politics, history, and rhetoric and oration, and you begin to see how wise some of these people were. So we're in essay number 29, Concerning the Militia by Alexander Hamilton. In order to cast an odium upon the power of calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union. So what is he talking about here? You need help to get the laws of the Union in place? Well, that's when you call forth the militia. Now, liberals classify militias as terrorist groups. But now you see a different angle of what a militia is. It has been remarked that there is nowhere any provision in the proposed Constitution for requiring the aid of the posse comitatus. This is very important. POSSECOMITATUS. The aid of the posse comitatus. To assist the magistrate in the execution of his duty, whence it has been inferred that military force was intended to be his only auxiliary. There is a striking incoherence in the objections which have appeared, and sometimes even from the same quarter, not much calculated to inspire a very favorable opinion of the sincerity or fair dealing of their authors. The same persons who tell us in one breath that the powers of the federal government will be despotic and unlimited, inform us in the next that it has not authority sufficient even to call out the posse comitatus. This is funny, okay? Oh man, so he has a good point there. One breath they say, oh, the government, if you give them power, they're going to be despotic and unlimited. And then the next they say, well, actually, you won't have the authority to even call for the posse comitatus. That's funny. The latter, fortunately, is as much short of truth as the former exceeds it. It would be absurd to doubt that a right to pass all laws necessary and proper to execute its declared powers would include that of requiring the assistance of the citizens to the officers who may be entrusted with the execution of those laws. Now, what are you getting at here? Okay, requiring the assistance of the citizens to do what? To help the officers. And these officers are entrusted to execute the laws. As would be believed that a right to enact laws necessary and proper for the imposition and collection of taxes would be involved, that varying the rules of descent, of the alienation of a landed property, or of abolishing the trial by jury in cases relating to it. It being therefore evident that the supposition of a want of power to require the aid of the posse comitatus is entirely destitute of color, it will follow that the conclusion which has been drawn from it in its application to the authority of the federal government over the militia is as uncandid as is illogical. What reason could there be to infer that force was intended to be the sole instrument of authority? What reason could there be to infer that force was the intended sole? I mean, when you think of authority, you think of force, right? Merely because there is a power to make use of it when necessary? Yeah, I would say so. What shall we think of the motives which could induce men of sense to reason in this extraordinary manner? How shall we prevent a conflict between charity and conviction? Well, that's a complicated one, isn't it? How do you prevent a conflict between charity and conviction? That's a very tough question. By a curious refinement upon the spirit of Republican jealousy. Republican jealousy, to regard the Republic. Curious refinement upon the spirit of Republican jealousy. We of the federal government, it is observed that select corps may be formed, composed of the young and the ardent. Aha! So the corps, they should be composed of the young and the ardent, not the ones who change their gender every day, or the obese or frail women, who may be rendered subservient to the views of arbitrary power. What plan for the regulation of the militia may be pursued by the national government is impossible to be foreseen. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to foresee some things, but so far from viewing the matter in the same light with those who object to select corps as dangerous. So some might not want to select because they think it's just too dangerous. Were the Constitution ratified, and were I to deliver my sentiments to a member of the federal legislature on the subject of militia establishment, I should hold to him, in the substance, the following discourse. Okay, let's see what he says. The project of disciplining all the militia of the United States is as futile as it would be injurious if it were capable of being carried into execution. It's not too hard to discipline the militias. Oh, I don't think that would be futile. A tolerable expertness in military movements is a business that requires time and practice. True, yes. It is not a day, nor a week, nor even a month. It's going to take time. That will suffice for the attainment of it. Still, even if it's going to take a long time, better than nothing. To oblige the great body of the yeomanry and of the other classes. Yeomanry. This is a word you should learn. Yeomanry. A yeoman. To be under arms for the purpose of going through military exercises and evolutions as often as might be necessary to acquire the degree of perfection which would entitle them to the character of a well-regulated militia. Okay, here, going through military exercises. So he's contending that the militias should go through military training. Today, liberal Democrats, those filthy fascists, will say, if you do military training and it was a militia, you're a terrorist, and they'll put you in Gitmo. They'll torture you. They'll lock you up. They'll put you on a no-fly list. When you see that Alexander Hamilton here is saying, no, you want a well-trained militia. Now, who does that training? Private versus federal? That's another question. Would be a real grievance to the people and a serious public inconvenience and loss. It would form an annual deduction in the productive labor of the country, so I don't think so. So if we had too many people who were training, there wouldn't be enough productive labor. I don't think so. You could totally rotate that. I mean, is it better to have them training for the militias, or are they just loitering about? Right? We have a lot of aimless youth. They could definitely be doing something better by being trained in a militia to be a posse comitatus when they federal government needs them, to an amount which, calculating upon the present numbers of the people, would not fall short of £1,000,000. To attempt a thing which would abridge the mass of labor and industry to so considerable an extent would be unwise. Well, maybe that was then, but we got a lot of people now. A lot. And the experiment, if made, could not succeed. I don't know about that, because it would not long be endured. I mean, why not try, though? Little more can reasonably be aimed at with respect to the people at large than to have them properly armed and equipped. Properly armed and equipped. And in order to see this be not neglected, it will be necessary to assemble them once or twice in the course of a year. More than that. Muster them as much as you need. Why not? I like that line he said, though. Curious refinement upon the spirit of Republican jealousy. Very fascinating. Requiring the assistance of the citizens, officers being entrusted to execute the laws. Very good. What do you think, fam? He is indeed an excellent writer. Calling forth the power of the militia to execute the laws of the Union, the posse comitatus is to assist the magistrate in the execution of his duty. Be well trained, well equipped. They had to do military exercises. They need to have a tolerable expertise. Fascinating. What do you think?